Right, I think we're live. I see the live YouTube button up. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Conscious Conversations. I am your host, Ashanti Kafi, and tonight we will be discussing Black women and the Black Slate. Our panel this evening includes Sister Nelija Stewart, who joined the Shrine in 1967 and started working as the church secretary in 1970. She joined the Black Slate in 1973 under the leadership of our very own Jaramogi Abebe Ajamin and Cardinal Nandi Barbara Martin. Sister Nelija started attending Black Slate organizational meetings, and that's where she learned to plan, organize, structure, and facilitate the entire Black Slate process. She's been a member of the Black Slate for over 40 years and is proud to have had the opportunity to be a part of a committed group of people who understand the importance of advocating and serving in the best interest of the community. Also with us this evening is Mary Rashida Blackman. Ms. Blackman joined the Shrine by way of the choir in 1958, where she served as choir director for over 40 years. She too joined the Black Slate in 1973 under the direction of our very own Jaramogi Abebe Ajamin and Cardinal Nandi Barbara Martin. We also have with us Sister Tanae Ramsey, who joined the church in 1965 when it was the Central Congregational Church, becoming the Shrine in 1967. Tanae Ramsey also joined the Black Slate in 1973 under the leadership of Jaramogi Abebe Ajamin and Cardinal Nandi Barbara Martin. Tanae began her Black Slate duties as a hostess, greeting candidates who came to seek endorsement for the Black Slate or from the Black Slate. She's worked on several campaigns and has also served with the Black Slate for 40 years. We have with us also Sister Adeshila Holmes, who grew up in the church and became a member of the Black Slate in 2008 due to her impassioned commitment to being a community advocate. And we also have myself, Ashanti Kafi, who's a member of the Black Slate, joining the church and the Black Slate in 2021. And with that introduction, I am going to pass it to Sister Nelija Stewart, who's going to give us a brief history of the Slate.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Prior to the Black Slate in the 1960s, there were community activist organizations led by Reverend Albert B. Clegg Jr., that's Jaramogi Abebe Ajamin. They were focused and committed to important issues pertinent to the Black community, such as the Illustrated News, the Freedom Now Party, Foreign No More, Black Parents for Quality Education, and the Black Teachers Caucus. These groups advocated for voting rights as well as voting for Black candidates and quality education and economic development. Throughout this process during the 60s, there were women who worked diligently to make sure the needed work was done. Barbara Martin, that's Cardinal Nandi, and Barbara Smith served as associate editors of the Illustrated News. Gladys Evans, who's Jaramogi's sister, and Doris Clegg served on the editorial board of the Illustrated News. Dr. Grace Lee Boggs and her husband, James Boggs, worked diligently with the Freedom Now Party and later advocated for education and started a school called the Grace and Jimmy Boggs Educational Center, and that many of our Shrine children attended. Grace Boggs was also inducted into both the National Women's Hall of Fame and the Michigan Women's Hall of Fame. The Black Slate was founded by Jaramogi and made its debut during the 1973 Detroit mayoral election for Coleman A. Young. During his campaign, the Black Slate Committee planned, organized, worked in the community to support Coleman Young. Barbara Martin, that's Cardinal Nandi, recruited sisters in the Shrine to begin identifying the areas of the city where we would send Black Slate volunteers to pass out literature and identify polling locations where we would work on election day. On election day, hundreds of Black Slate volunteers, and we call it the Black Slate Army, politely and diligently work the polls from the time the polls open to the time the polls close. We're talking about 13 hours working the polls. Through that effort, Coleman Young became our first Black mayor. That was the Black Slate's very first victory. Now, the Black Slate has been in existence for almost 50 years, and it has been actively engaged in working for and supporting candidates and issues important to the Black Slate. And we've been very successful in collaborating with other organizations that have followed in our footsteps. So what is the Black Slate? The Black Slate is a nonprofit education, information disseminating, fundraising, community advocacy, and civic engagement agency serving metropolitan areas as a public service. The Black Slate supports candidates, elected officials, educators, and collaborates with other community organizations pledged to serve the best interests of the Detroit community.
All right. That's a very impressive history. I always, every time I read that, I always hear something new in it. Thank you for sharing, Sister Elijah. Sister Tanae, can you tell us about the women's involvement early in the inception of the Black Slate?
And you know, you mentioned that, and that touches my heart every time I go back and reflect on all the women that we had that was so heavily involved in the Black Slate. Not only did we have Cardinal Nandi and Mcphail, we had sisters that was behind the scenes that never stopped for 1 minute. On election day morning at 3 o'clock, we had sisters like Titi Lopez, Mcphail, Sister Rebron, Gigi, Sue Mays. They got up every election day morning and worked in the kitchen preparing breakfast for over 200 people. Those are folks that we never mention or not even think about because they were the foundation and make sure that we were fed on the polls. That morning at 6 o'clock, when the teams came down, 200 people in the dining room having breakfast, then they would turn around and prepare lunch. And then when we came back after the polls closed, they were there to feed us, to make sure we had meals set for kings and queens. They were out of sight. And I have to call their names because they kept the armies moving. Not only did we have that, we had sisters that worked the nursery. During that period of time, they would make sure the kids were in bed that night. The next morning, had got them up at 6, 7 o'clock when we were gone out to work the polls. They were there feeding the children. We're talking about Nefertiti, Sister Fundi Tene, which Kufu, Ashaki, Fundi Amina. All of those sisters worked hard. They got the children dressed. And it was a whole platform of women that had to keep this moving so we could have the Black Slate be successful. Now, I'm just saying all that. That may not seem important to a lot of you, but we had to have this whole organizational structure in order for us to make sure that our candidates won. Now, Elijah didn't mention this, and she was one of the ones that contacted the city clerk's office to make sure she knew where every polling place was in the city. Sisters worked in the office in advance to make sure that we knew every polling place, how many people had to be on the polls, the hours. We had to have checkers. Now, a lot of folks don't know what checkers are. Checkers are folks that go in to make sure the votes are being tallied correctly. Nalaja and Tanu organized that all in advance. Now that was powerful because back then we were all just learning. And so we were all guessing at what to do, even though we did have leadership that had an inkling of an idea of what we were supposed to do. It got done effectively. And I have to mention the countless of sisters that were on the polls from 7 a.m. It started off just to end up at 6, but later on, they moved the time from 7 a.m. to 8. So when you say sisters that influenced the Black Slate, it was hundreds of us, not just a certain amount. We do praise Cardinal 90. We do praise May Perriman and all the other wonderful sisters. But the sisters behind the scene, they were just as important as the sisters up front. And I like to say to all of them, and the ones that's still here and the ones that's gone on, thank you. Thank you for your service.
I think that's a very important fact to bring up, because when we hear about things, we don't always necessarily think about what it took to make that thing happen. And I think women have always been operational leaders. And we're talking real work. We're not talking about going on Google and looking something up or posting a tweet online. We're talking about people in the streets, making phone calls, going to houses, standing in front of the polling site, passing out leaflets. This was all real work, and none of it is paid work, right? So that's a real commitment to Black people, to service. And so I would be remiss if I didn't bring that point up. Like, operationally, these women, and not just the candidates, but the women who helped run the organization, sacrifice themselves and their time in a meaningful way. So I thank you for bringing
what we were doing. And it was a commitment from the heart and from the soul. And everybody was in lots, how you say, all in
Lockstep.
Lockstep, step by step. Thank you. She always helps me out. I appreciate that. That's the way it has been, and that's where we would like to take it to.
Beautiful, beautiful. Sister Rashida, can you tell us about how women were encouraged to run for office by our leadership?
That's an interesting term, encouraged. We were recruited and encouraged. It wasn't a matter that you could, you didn't want to say no, but you didn't think you were prepared to do this, So they convinced us, some of us, that we were ready and able. And not only were we ready and able, we were really being called on to try to serve our community in a way that many others were just out there for themselves. We were out there for all of our people, our community. So I wouldn't, that's a kind way of saying that we were recruited. We were selected by Cardinal Nandi and by Jaramogi. In my case, Sister Barbara Rose Collins, Sister Makunda, was in cahoots with she went to Cardinal Nandi, and they convinced me to run. There was going to be an opening on the Board of Education. They convinced me to run, and it was going to be from, at that time we had regions, and we had a citywide and we had regions. So they convinced me to run from my region where I lived. And, even though I was very reluctant to do that, that seemed okay. I had 2 children who were both preschool age. And I really had not been involved at that point in the school system. So I didn't know how everything worked. But I did know, because of my job, I was hiring people for jobs at the telephone company. And I did know that an inordinate number of our young people who came in to try to get jobs failed the test. And that was really, it was difficult for me to have to tell them I couldn't offer them employment because they had not passed the test. But I did give them some encouragement as to how they could go and study, look at various employment guides to see how they could prepare themselves and come back and take the test. I was always trying to encourage them so that they didn't feel so let down. But what it said to me, there was a failing to me in our school system, that so many of our graduates were not able to pass what I considered to be not really very difficult tests. So they convinced me, with my 2 preschool age children, to run for this district seat. And then all of a sudden, this guy who was on the citywide elected decided not to run. And they said, well, now we told you we're going to run for the district seat in Region 5, but now we want you to run citywide. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what running, but I knew I didn't want to do it because it was far greater commitment than I had decided to be recruited for. So anyway, I wound up running against 11 men, not a woman, not another woman in the race, 11 men. And Edna Bell was, no, pardon me, Emma Bell was my first campaign manager. Then she'd been selected by Cardinal Nandi to be my first campaign manager. Actually, I'm sorry, let me backtrack on that. Sister Barbara Rose Collins was really my first campaign manager. She had all the connections with the union. She got me all these endorsements. They didn't know anything about Mary Blackman. They got me the endorsements with the unions, and she got me actually funding from the unions that we desperately needed. So she was successful in getting me to interview with all of these people, and then they selected Emma Bell to take me around to these various churches, and because of her connection with the churches, she got the ministers to get me to sing every time I came. So I was singing at every church in the city, just about, and my opponents kept saying, well, you know, why is she getting so much attention and so many? Why is she coming number one in the primary? And the one guy says, well, I don't sing. So, but it wasn't that. It was because of our organizational skills in the church and on the Black Slate. So that was my first introduction. And then my second campaign manager, when I was reelected, my second campaign manager was, did I say Emma Bell yet? Yeah, it was Mukunda, then it was Emma Bell. Then my third campaign manager was Sister Tanae. Sister Tanae got me reelected. I was reelected twice, actually 3 times to the Board of Education. So it was all because of the talent and skills and dedication of the people in the women in the church. Really, we did have one man elected to the Board of Education, and that was Cardinal Muthamaki. Reverend Muthamaki was elected to the Region 1 board. So Gwen Clark, Barbara Rose Collins, and Muthamaki were our Region 1 representatives. I was a citywide representative. And then as a result of that, I got elected to other boards, but I will save that for later. But that's how I first got recruited and encouraged to run for office.
So this is what I heard. I heard you had, the Black Slate has powerhouse people, right? Well-connected.
Absolutely.
And strategists, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to think about that thing. And so although you were not experienced, you were fully supported. You were not just thrown out and saying, we're gonna put Mary Blackman, Sister Rashida Blackman on the slate to run. You were fully supported.
Yes, absolutely.
And that just speaks to the Black Slate itself and the talent that it had running the organization. So it's no wonder that its reputation is what it is even to this day.
Absolutely. I was supported, backed up all the way.
So can I get you to talk about what made you get involved with the Black Slate? So you started off in the choir.
I didn't decide to get involved with the Black Slate. That wasn't the way things worked. Yeah, I started off working in the choir. I was in the choir for a year, and then all of this to me is important to the foundation of the church. And then Olam Wanza, Deacon Oscar Hand recruited me because I had been studying to be a concert singer. He recruited me to sing solos. So I sang solos, and that gave me, more exposure in the church. We started our first gospel group in the church. But all of that gave you a little bit of confidence. Even though you were not ready for politics, these experiences that the church had you go through made you more confident in going out. So I never felt, really nervous when I had to get up before a crowd of people, because I had been before crowds of people at the shrine. So it was just a wonderful nurturing experience that I think most of us can attest to. That even though we were put out there in leadership roles, we had a backup team that was outstanding. As a result of that, I got elected. Not only did I get elected to the Detroit board, but because of that, I got elected to the Wayne Risa Board of Education, where I was elected I was appointed in 1981, elected in 1982. I still serve on the Risa Board of Education. So it's the County Board of Education, and they really service all of the students in the county of Wayne. As a result of that, I got appointed to SEMCOG, the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments, which is a 7-county regional board that deals with all kinds of aspects of our lives, transportation, roads, water, everything. And then to MAC, which is a combination of business, education, and civic leaders, elected leaders across the 6-county regions. So all because I was recruited and elected to the Detroit Board of Education from the Shrine.
That's beautiful. So all of our panelists here are members of the Black Slate. I hope everyone caught that in the introduction. And so we have a lot of history here with Sister Elijah Stewart and Sister Tanae. Sister Elijah, can you tell us how you got involved with the Black Slate?
Well, as I said in the bio, I started out as a secretary. I joined the church in 67. I became the church secretary in 70. And the church's office was in the cultural center. And my office was next to Cardinal Nandi's, right? So when Jaramogi came to the office, he would talk to me and he would talk to Cardinal Nandi, and then he would talk about the Black Slate. And with the organizational part of it, they would bring me into the discussions about this is what we want to do regarding the Black Slate, and so they said, we want you to be a part of it. So I took notes and I took minutes, and then I started learning the organizational part, all the things. And they brought, and I cannot think of this lady's name. She worked for the city clerk's office, but she was very organized, and they brought her in to train me on how to, the polling locations and identifying precincts and all those kind of things. And so I was brought in as the secretary of the church, and then just automatically they just brought me. That was, because the Shrine and the Black Slate was connected, because Jaramogi was the pastor of the Shrine, and he was the founder of the Black Slate. So everything was connected, even though it's separate. And so that was just like an automatic. So that's how I initially got brought in 1973 when the Black Slate was established. And like I said earlier, I've been a part of it ever since. And I'm still learning.
Sister Shanti?
Yes.
One thing, I don't know if we said this yet, but the Shrine, the Black Slate was the only political action committee to endorse Coleman Young. All of the other committees and groups were endorsing his opponent. We were the only one that endorsed him in the primary. So when he won the primary, the others jumped on board then, but we because of Jaramogi, because of Reverend Albert B. Clegg Jr., when he had a meeting with him, he said, this is the one. And I think Elijah knows a little bit more about that, but nevertheless, we got behind him, and we were the reason he became the mayor of the city of Detroit.
What a historical victory that was.
Oh, yes.
Sister,
He never forgot it. He never forgot it.
No, we don't forget that. So you are one of the younger members on the Black Slate. So can you tell us how you became involved and what your responsibilities are?
You're talking to
Adeshila.
Yes.
Adeshila.
I thought you were paying me the compliment.
So I was born into the second generation of Akibaland for the church. And so programs and activities and participation with regard to my life was basically a non-issue. Already having been implanted and being identified and outlined for my life as far as with the church. And so I remember my inception into the Black Slate was because I found a picture of myself. I could have been no more than 2 years old. I was in a Black Slate t-shirt. It could have been at a rally. Yep, so there's me standing between my mom and my godmother from Dikazi. So from a young age, I was integrated into the political culture and what it meant to be a part of the Black Slate. I joined the committee in 2018 officially. And so now as an adult, being a voting member on the slate means that I am assessing the needs of the people, having those pertinent conversations, asking questions, and creating a space for accountability. And for me, as an individual, most importantly, it's not just about accountability, it's about atonement. Because I'm learning that, or I have learned, one, that politics is or can be dishonest, and two, that people are human. But we make decisions, and we have to either stand by them, and the decisions that we do make can create Pareto's optimality, as it relates to what we think and what should occur for other people's lives.
Pretty powerful. I admire that you all have been involved with the church for so long. Myself being the newest member to the church and the slate, got involved because I had known about the shrine for a few years. And a friend of mine is a member, Sister Kathala, and through her influence was brought into the church and just fell in love with the purpose of the church, the African-centered spirituality of the church, and joined the Black Slate because we all remember what was happening in the world in 2020. And I have two young sons, and my oldest son wanted to protest. And it just kind of awakened me as to my complacency in life, and would always be one of those people that would talk about it, but was really just, honestly, if I'm being honest with myself, just sitting on the couch, sitting on the sidelines and doing nothing but talking about it. And so when I had the opportunity to join this organization, this historical organization that has done so much, that has had so much impact, not just in Detroit, but nationally, I knew I wanted to be a part of that. And found out that not only that I feel like I belonged at the church, I also feel like I belong in the Black Slate. Like it's a family oriented, although the business of politics is very serious, and the people who have served the Black Slate and the amount of time they have served the Black Slate love the work that they do, and that work comes out in our committee meetings, and the way that we vote. And so it's really just not a place of political business. It is truly a family, and that's what I appreciate. So me even being here allowed to host this and talk with this amazing group of women is just honestly me getting to love on you a little more, get to know you a little more. And so I'm proud of that. And so lastly, we don't want to forget Sister Tanae. If you could tell us about your journey and how you became a member of the Slate, the Black Slate.
What happened was when we first started interviewing candidates, Colonel Nani said, we need to have a receptionist, because when they come in, we have the interview team in the background, but we don't have anybody to greet her. So I was just like a greeter. But before that, I would set up refreshments and everybody, and it was really exciting because I was given a chance to meet all these politicians. Little did I know that May Perriman was going to ask me to train under her how to deal with absentee ballots all over the city. Now, absentee ballots, they're called absentee voter ballots, are very important because if you can get enough of those in advance, people don't have to go to the polls. Well, she trained me how to do that. And from there, I was working in senior buildings for the Black Slate. I was helping seniors fill out their absentee ballots. I was going all over the city doing that type of work before I became the director of how one thing evolves to another. I became the director of the Senior Citizens Department for the city of Detroit. Then I get appointed to the state board by the governor. So one thing led to another as far as being involved in the Black Slate. It was a very humble beginning. I set out the refreshments. I laughed and talked with the different candidates when they came in the room. And it was just fun to me. In no way did I think then that I would be doing what I do now. And I've worked for several different politicians throughout the years. I helped get all the teams out for the Black Slate, over 45 workers in advance. That's before the election day, poll workers. And you know what? I have to say this. It has really evolved because we volunteered when we were young. Folks don't work for free anymore. So that meant I would find funding from different organizations. The UAW helped sponsor some of the folks that I would send out during, not I personally, the Black Slate, being a member of the Black Slate, sent them out. So it's been an evolving journey for me, starting with being a receptionist, all the way for working with different politicians and being directors of different departments for the city and county. So
I think that leads right into our next talking point, which is the importance of the Black Slate, right? So the importance as an institution, the importance of the Black Slate to voters, and the reputation that the Black Slate has. I think it's important to acknowledge that not only are we a political action committee, we are a successful political action committee, and we have had some historical wins, starting with our very own former mayor, Coleman Young. Rutgers University did a history on women of color in the United States. And as of 2021, there were only 83 women of color in the US House of Congress, US representatives. Two of them were our very own Barbara Rose Collins and Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick. And I just want to really talk about the historical impact, the meaningful impact that the Black Slate has had on electing women of color to powerful positions, to positions of influence, positions to serve the Black community. Anyone want to jump in on that discussion with me?
Yes, I'll add to that. I did a little research just to see, and I did a count, and it seems like it's over like 125 in various positions. County clerk, county commissioners, state representatives, state senators, and you mentioned like the U.S. Congress, city council. Throughout the years, from the time the Black Slate started up until to currently, so many black women, and I had a list of them, and I didn't bring it with me, but all those positions, all those different categories of office that I just mentioned, that we had Black women successful, and some of them that were in during the 70s are still in office now. Like the what's her name? With county commission, and we supported her every election.
Martha Scott,
Alicia Bell, right?
Yeah, Coleman, what's her name?
Irma
Clark Coleman. Yeah, so it's quite a few. And some of them were in office with Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick and Barbara Rose, because Carolyn and Barbara Rose were both state representatives before they became congresswomen. And Barbara Rose, I think she was on the school board.
Yeah.
She was the state reps. She was a city council person. She was U.S. Congress person.
Yeah.
Where's something else she was, yeah. So it's almost like she was in all the categories elected, but we supported her every election and she won. Yeah, like I said, well over 150 to 200 women, Black women, have been in service in those various categories.
And we endorse candidates for all positions, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
as you mentioned, state representative, congressional representative, city council, mayoral,
Wayne County Commission, Wayne County Commission, the Sheriff's Department. No, we don't. Say that was Black men have been that, but we've endorsed, the Sheriff's Department, Wayne County Sheriff's Department, Wayne County Exec, and we've been successful.
The judges, we
so many judges, so many judges. Yes,
she not only was she elected to several judgeships. She was also on the Charter Commission, one of the original Charter Commission, not original, I don't know, but she was on a Charter Commission prior to the last two. And she was elected, I think, chair of that Charter Commission. She's done outstanding work and she's had outstanding legal opinions. She certainly was a strong advocate in this last election when people tried to take the election in Michigan, and she certainly ruled appropriately on that. So she's just been outstanding. She's, I don't know how many judgeships she's had. I had them listed, but she's been in a number of judicial positions and outstanding work in every one she's held.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Also, we have endorsed other judges, but I wanted to endorse.
Yeah, she was 36th District Court, Third Circuit Court, and then Court of Appeals.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So why do you think that we have such a strong reputation as a dependable slate? Like I get the sense that people still today rely on us as a source for voting information.
Because of our integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we aren't there for ourselves, we're there for our people. We're there for our community. So if we were out trying to just do something for ourselves, I don't think we would have the same reputation, but we are always trying to make sure that we put the interests of the citizens of our community first. That's really our only purpose. And I think people are confused also that because we are the Black Slate, that doesn't mean we have not sometimes endorsed non-Black people. Mary Ann Mahaffey was one of the very first people on our slate back when I think we endorsed Mayor Young. I'm not sure if it was that.
That's correct.
When we endorsed Mary Young, we also endorsed Mary Ann Mahaffey. So people of integrity who are pledged to serve our community are the ones that we focus on, and the majority of those happen to be Black people.
And I want to add to that in terms of not just integrity, but approachability, because sometimes we think that in politics, you can't get to that person, but when we are of the community and we are inserted in the community, people can come to us with their concerns. They can let us know what's going on. We can talk to those legislators to say, hey, this person is living in your district. What's going on? You got to look this up. So we are that voice for those community members.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So that kind of leads us into our next talking point, which is the future of the Black Slate, right? So we have this reputation, we have this proven history. What is the future of the Black Slate? Sister Adeshila, can you start that off? I think you kind of started already.
Yes. So the future lies in us as Black women to recall our legislative, I'll say, foremothers and community servant leaders like Shirley Chisholm, Marcia Fudge, Barbara Rose Collins, Sister Mukunda, Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick, Sister Nataki. Tanae mentioned May Perriman, Emma Bell, women who I did not know about, but am glad to know our rich history. The rich history of Black Slate lies with not just the men, but the Black women who we don't see, and looking at what they've accomplished and use what we have learned to propel forward. And it is also important to remember that even if some of us do not have interest in becoming politicians, as constituents, our power lies in our vote and in our agency. Our vote equals our voice. And so when we know the information and we are empowered to make decisions and choose individuals that have our best interests at heart. So we must continue to educate ourselves as well as our people.
I agree with that.
I would like to add something to this, and I appreciate Ashante and Adeshala, but we need young folks to come in and sit in on the Black Slate that are interested in politics and be involved, not just come in for a minute and then disappear. We need people to really take on we're trying to pass the baton, but we're not going to stop being involved. But we need young folks to take our place. Because just like May Perriman and Jeramogi, they gave us the knowledge, but if we don't have anybody to pass it on to, we're gonna be, my son Candia always says, we may end up a footnote in somebody's paper if we don't have our young folks. And I'm saying this to make sure our young folks, if there's any out there listening, ask to come along, ask us, can you be involved?
I hear a call to action, y'all. I hear it. That's a call to action.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we understood that, because I don't want to be a footnote.
Absolutely. And I think one of the ways that we can do that is to continue the legacy work that we've been doing. When I was reading over the history again and the creation of the pink papers that later became the Illustrated News, as a way of communicating to people and informing people of the issues. And we've put on some educational forums last year. We will continue to do that work in 2022 and in the years to come. And I think that is one of the ways that we attract people to our platform, is by disseminating the information, letting them know that we are still working on behalf of the citizens of our city, of our Black citizens, and that we still have a very valid and interested work in politics. We still have the passion for politics, and I think that demonstrating that passion will attract like-minded people. So I think we really just continue to do what we do, but we broadcast what we do more regularly, the same way that the Illustrated News was broadcast back in the 70s. I think we will be more than a footnote. I'm pretty sure. I think we've done way too much to just be a footnote. So Sister Elijah, can you talk to us more about how we're going to encourage and prepare future leaders such as myself and Sister Adeshala?
So as Tanae said, we want to invite interested, committed young people to be a part of the Black Slate, to understand the process, what we're doing. One of the things that we did last year is we asked group leaders of the church to ask, maybe have one of their members come and be a part of our advisory team, just to come in and listen and understand our process, how we go about doing the things, and we come to the decisions that we come to. And I thought that was very, very important. But I want us to add to that, to bring in more young folks so they can understand the process. They don't have to necessarily be on the Black Slate Committee, but understand what we do as an organization and how we make the decisions we do in our organizational structure. What I wanted to also add to that is we have very, very intelligent young folks, Adeshala, Ashanti, Lutalo, Sheba, that's already on the Black Slate. And they have been committed, and they really have stepped up. And I really think all 4 of them could run for office. Be in the, just like Jaramogi went to, told Rashida, you're gonna run for this. And, she couldn't say no. Like she said that she wasn't asked, she was nicely told. But that's the way we used to operate. You just say, we need you to do this. And then you just did it because you were committed to the struggle, to what we were doing, So I know, Shanti, you just moved in your community, but we want to come up with a structure that we want to run our candidates. We want to run our folks, because you understand this Black folks, you understand our history, our history. So I think all 4 of you would be excellent candidates. And I know it's a lot of hard work, but you would do well in any of the categories of the fields, state rep, state senator, city clerk, or whatever, because all of you know how to work hard, and you're very intelligent, and you know how to do the research and get prepared. And both of you have already served on and organized some forums that we've had. Ashanti, you did, and so did you, Adeshala, and we got a very positive feedback. So we want to continue just to keep having you grow.
All right.
So I'm putting that out for everybody to hear that, right?
You put it on Facebook Live. And
yeah.
We've got some comments. So we had another sister, Sister Latrice McGee of Houston, was told as well about being politically involved.
Okay.
And we've gotten a black thumbs up. I think this is Bishop DeGenova says, my family and friends were not necessarily members, but always sought out the Black Slate before they cast their vote in every election. And then we have that infamous reminder that BCN teaches politics are sacred. Mm-hmm. And I think that is that call to action that was established early on.
Yeah,
is definitely one that the Black Slate takes very seriously and lives every day. So with that, we're going to take some time to see if there are any questions coming from Facebook or coming from the Zoom audience. And if you haven't had the opportunity to post your question, now would be a good time.
While they're doing that, Ashanti, I think we would be remiss if we did not mention we also endorse Sharon Mcphail for City Council.
Yes, thank you.
I wanted we mentioned her name. And even when she ran for prosecutor, I think we endorsed her for that. Unfortunately, she was not successful, but nevertheless, she was quite qualified for the position.
There were several other women that we endorsed that we didn't mention their names throughout the years. This county clerk, and I can remember I think the first African-American county clerk was Teola Hunter, if I'm not mistaken.
You said she was the Wayne County clerk. Yeah.
I said county clerk.
Yeah,
okay. But county clerk, right?
Wayne County clerk. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. County clerk was Teola Hunter, and she's still around fighting the good fight.
She is.
Making sure that Black women are empowered and speaking on behalf of Black women all over the country. Really, she's still traveling.
And Edna Bell was first elected to the Detroit Board of Education, and then she became a county commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
Edna Bell did, and then now Alicia Bell is the chair of the county commission.
So we actually have a question. We actually have two questions. The first one says, with all that Black women have done to organize for the political success of others, what are we going to do to get more sisters in elected office? Does anyone want to take that?
That's what we're doing right now, isn't it?
Yeah, we do have quite a few sisters in elected office. You know, some new sisters just were elected in the city council. Our city council has nine seats, and I think 5, 6 of them are sisters, aren't they? Well, 5 of them are Black sisters.
Sister Janae's counting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm counting.
Yeah. And then we were instrumental in getting what, 3 of them on this past election. So we do have Black
And
women
we have
in
the county
most of the
clerks.
offices.
We have 4 county clerk Black women that we endorse.
County
We've been
commissioners.
endorsing Black women throughout the years. Now, let's say we're a committee and it's one vote, one person, one vote. And whoever gets the majority vote is the one that gets the endorsement. Yes, we endorse women constantly. We always push forward the women's agenda. So I hope that answered that person's question.
And let me mention our process. During election time, we put a notice out that the Black Slate is interviewing candidates that are running. Now, we only interview people that ask. If they're running, they have to ask. We don't go out there and say, you got to, come on in. They have to know, because if you're running, you need to know that. That's something you already just need to know, to check around to see what groups I need to get interviewed by so I can get the endorsement. So we interview and endorse people that we think have the best interests of the community. And we endorse, by one, like Tanae said, everybody has one vote when they come in for the interview. And it might be 3 or 4 people running for the same office. And we endorse the person that we think will be the best person for the job.
They become some knockdown, drag out conversations.
Yes.
A lot of times.
Sister Rashida, you can raise your hand.
If I may, because I think it's important for us to also put out there that we want people to get experience in community service and community organizations. We don't want them to just say, I want to run for office, and they haven't done anything. So they should come with a record of commitment to the community. The organizations they've been engaged with, things that they think are important, and what they've done to help facilitate it wherever they are, because you don't have to be elected to office to make a difference in the community. And we want people shown that they really want to make our community better than it is today. So we don't want someone to just say, oh, I want to run, and they haven't done anything. So they need to make sure they've established themselves in some way before they decide to run for office.
I think you may have alluded to the next question, which it says, for Black women who don't want to run for office, but who want to make a political impact, what actions would you suggest they take?
Join the committee.
Get involved in different organizations, political organizations.
Yeah.
Even try to work for a politician. Volunteer on their campaign. Find out what all it is that needs to be done. There's so many small areas you can work in a campaign. You can work on the phone bank. You can work on the polls. You can be a driver. You can pass out literature. You can be a lead person for a candidate. That means you go in advance to walk to a different meeting in advance before the candidate is there. So it's a lot of different things you can do to get involved if you don't want to be a politician, to be involved.
And that was a really good time. It's election year.
Every district has meetings. They can become involved in the district community organizations, the political organizations over there, and learn how politics really works. Go and volunteer in that organization, whatever, 13th, 12th, 14th, wherever they are, and make sure that they are learning how to organize, learning what contributions they can make, but just become involved. Just don't sit on the sidelines. Find something about which you want to be engaged.
You know what?
There-
One year, I think it was the year Carter ran for office.
Mhm.
I wanted to see how the system worked. So even though I wasn't a delegate, I went to the national convention, and I have been to every Democratic national convention since Carter's election. Every 4 years, I would go to the convention if I was a delegate or not. Once you get there, you get to see how the whole country operates under those platforms. And it was really interesting because when I went to, didn't know anyone, bought a ticket, didn't know where I was going to stay. I was always kind of a little rebel, and went to the convention and met folks from all over the country. And if you want to get involved, be creative of how you get involved. Talk to people, ask what's going on, and just do it. If you're not a free spirit, then you probably should check
Might
in
do
with
a little more planning.
Oh, you do not agree to run for public office. Some people will look at that and think that that's important, but it's what you've done that qualifies you to run for public office.
Mhm.
It doesn't hurt to have the degree. Now, I'm not going to say it wouldn't be beneficial, but you do not have to have a college degree to run for public office.
Right. And it used to be a time you didn't have to have a degree to run for be a judge.
Oh,
And
really?
that was when I was young. You didn't have to have a college degree.
I
Even be a judge.
I feel like that in some states.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. I read that somewhere and it blew me away. I was like, wow, you could make judgment on people and not even have studied the law, but okay.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, did Mary Young have a degree?
Oh,
He had a degree in life.
he was brilliant. He was
He
brilliant.
but he did not have
Did not have a degree.
institutional, one of the
No.
Wayne State or
No, he
any
did
other big colleges. He was just
He was smarter than everybody he ran into. Yeah.
right. So to answer that person, no, you don't have to have a degree, but it's very helpful in the 21st century.
21st century.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, we are approaching the hour. And if there are no more questions, I think we can wrap it up. I want to thank everyone this evening for your time and your attention to this platform. I hope you were able to soak up some knowledge from my panelists with all of their experience. And I hope you got a chance to get a glimpse into their passion for this work and why they were asked to be a part of this panel. I hope you were influenced by the Black Slate. And as Sister Tanae Ramsey said earlier, come join us. We're looking for people to join us who are committed to this work, who want to learn more about this work, who want to serve their community. The Black Slate is open. Would anybody else like to say any parting words?
Just like to say what a pleasure this has been. I've enjoyed it thoroughly, and I hope that those who have tuned in have gained from it as well.
So our email is theblackslate@gmail.com, right? Or is it Detroit Black Slate?
What's our email, Nalaja?
I can't remember because we got a new one and the Dayshala, and I was going to ask Dayshala, you remember?
We're on Facebook. You can certainly catch us on Facebook at the
Yeah.
Detroit Black Slate on Facebook. We are on Instagram as well as the Detroit Black Slate. So those are ways to reach out to us as well.
We can
The Black
ask
Slate
you to
Inc.
put that. I'm
The
sorry.
Black Slate Inc.
I believe so.
Okay.
Say it again.
The Black Slate Inc. at Gmail.
Yep, that's it.
All right. So now that you have our contact information, we hope to hear from you. And with that, we'll say good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
night.
everyone.
Night.
Thank you,
Good
panelists.
night.
It's been great. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Are we off, sisters?
It looks like we're still live on YouTube, Brother
Oh,
Aswad.
I see Pastor Swad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Swad.